Hello, everyone. This is Shannon Riley, the host of Backyard Pet Talk. And today we have a great guest I'm very excited about. We have Lili Chin here. And some of you may or may not know who she is. She's an illustrator of dog and cats. And I have known her for many, many years since, gosh, I probably the 90s or the early 2000s when she was illustrating for Dr. Sophia Yin. And I am very, very honored to have her as one of our guests today. And so, hello, Lili. Nice to see you today.
Hi, Shannon. Thank you for having me.
I'm super excited to have you. And, you do some really great things, and people will be able to see this when they, look at your links and things. And I can even show like this is one of your books. Oops, I got to get it in the frame there. And you do wonderful illustrations of dogs and cats mostly is what I think you do, mostly dogs and cats, body language, so we can understand when a dog or a cat is fearful or excited without having to take pictures of it. And your illustrations are so accurate. I actually use quite a few of your handouts, and I use a lot of your illustrations for my own clients, so I'm really happy to have you here. Now, how did you get into, well, tell us a little about yourself too, and tell us about your background and how you got started in illustration.
Okay, so my background is in animation. I used to work in cartoon animation for TV, and when the work dried up in that area, I became a self-employed freelance illustrator. And this is like going back to I don't know, 2008, around then. And I just adopted my dog, who was a Boston Terrier, Boogie. And I just got obsessed with drawing him. So that's how I got into drawing dogs. I started off as a pet portrait artist. I was drawing people's dogs, sort of to fundraise for the rescue, as well as, it slowly evolved into a business. And the way I got into body language was actually because my dog Boogie, whom I mean, at the time I was completely naive. I didn't know anything about dog behavior or dog training. He bit my building manager. I almost got evicted from my apartment.
Oh no.
And as part of the deal with my landlord, he said, well, you got to fix this problem. If you want to stay, you've got to either get rid of the dog or you got to move out. And I pleaded. And to cut a long story short, I hired a dog trainer who offered me a guarantee that they will fix a problem.
Oh boy.
And I know that's not something that dog trainers should do, but this person did. At the time, the only dog training methodology I was aware of was the Dog Whisperer show. So I thought that, okay, this whom I've hired knows Cesar Milan, they must be good. And they put a prong collar on my dog, and he got worse. He became more aggressive. He became more mistrustful of people, obviously, because he was being hurt. He was
Mm-hmm.
in pain. And in my desperation, I went online and started looking for other ways. Like, how can and I wrote to Dogster. I don't know if you remember Dogster. They
Yep,
had a
I do.
behavior column. I found Dr. Sophia Yin's website, and I thought, oh my God, there's a whole other way of approaching dog training. So I sought out force-free dog trainers, and I found Sarah Owings. I don't know if you know
Yes, I
Sarah.
know Sarah.
So she was my dog trainer, and
Oh, that's amazing.
so I switched over to Sarah, and Sarah brought me all these books and videos, and one of them was Turit Rugas on talking terms with dogs, and Turit Rugas's DVD on calming signals. And I remember it blew my mind at the time. I just thought, why isn't this information more known? Why don't people know about this? Why don't
Mhm.
we know that dogs communicate through body language? Like, this wasn't on the Dog Whisperer show. So I started illustrating everything I was learning. I started observing my dog Boogie. I mean, I was seeing things that I hadn't seen before, but now that I've seen them, I couldn't unsee them. I was drawing all this stuff, and that's when it kind of took off. Grisha Stewart, who's a dog trainer,
Yes.
hired me to illustrate body language and material for her book. Dr. Sophia Yin, I actually reached out to her and said, do you need an illustrator? And she hired me, and I became an illustrator. So I
Mhm.
did body language charts for Dr. Sophia Yin. And over the years, more trainers and more shelters and groups contacted me. And, it was a learning experience for me as well, which was what made it so special to do
I can
this.
imagine that as you're drawing, because I'm a very visual learner, and I have
Yeah,
like I handwrite notes. If I go to a conference, I don't type, and
yeah.
and if I need to learn something, I'll draw something. Sometimes I'm not nearly as talented as you, but I will draw something, and for me, it helps me learn. And so I imagine that for you as an illustrator, when you're drawing these this body language of dogs, it's also helping you really learn body language, like as an expert, like really,
Yes.
because
Mm.
you have to look at those little nuances, because body language is nuances, the furrowed brow,
Yep.
and so when you're drawing those things, you're probably even learning more as you're drawing. So it's probably
Exactly.
a pretty interesting way of learning.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. Like I said, I remember you from my first experience with you was through Sophia Yin's charts and her handouts. I believe Sarah actually has even been on the podcast with her cows, because now that she's up
Oh,
north.
I'll
And
have to listen to that.
yeah, and so and Grisha is great too. I mean, there's just so many people, and what I love, and what we talked about before even we started the podcast, was I go to conferences now. I go to veterinary behavior conferences, or I go to dog training conferences, and people talk about, oh yeah, Lili Chin's doing my illustration, and it's your name. And you didn't even know this, but your
No.
name is very known now in
Oh,
our positive force-free field. And so I think it's pretty amazing. I didn't realize you came from animation. So that's super great. So you started out as an illustrator, and your first stuff was all other people's books, right? You were writing other people's
yes.
books or other people's handouts or
Hmm.
their information. What was the first that you were featured in? Was it Sophia Yin's or was it Grisha's?
You know what? My memory's a little vague. I think it
Oh,
was happening around the same time. It might have
okay.
been Sophia. It might have started with Sophia's
Mhm.
handouts. And then I was keeping a blog at that time. Remember the days when we had blogs?
Yes,
I
exactly.
had blog and I was keeping track of my training experiences with Boogie. So I would illustrate what I learned today, what I did today. And Grisha had just started writing about BAT, behavior
Hmm.
adjustment training at the time. And Sarah and I were doing BAT with Boogie. So I was drawing out these sort of trials that we were doing.
Hmm.
And Grisha saw them and said, will you illustrate my book on bats? So I think
Oh,
that was how it started. Yeah.
that is just so amazing. I bet, have you ever published your books or your illustrations from your experience with Boogie yet? Or has that one not been published?
No, no, I don't even think I have those anymore because I closed my blog account.
Oh yeah, because
Yeah.
that would be a really fascinating journey, especially as you were in the
Yeah.
moment of how, he went from being fearful and
Yeah.
reactive, to how his body language changed. That would be really fascinating. So
I mean, if it was still around, you would see the progression from me using a prong collar to using clicker and treats.
yes,
Yeah, it
I
was,
think that could, I
yeah,
mean, it's too bad you don't have those, because that I think could be a fascinating book for
yeah.
people to see the progressions.
I mean,
But
I still have those. I mean, if I dig around in my computer, I can still find drawings from all those years ago. And there is actually a drawing of how to use a prong collar, like which piece goes into which piece. And it's like, no, I absolutely do not want to put this on the internet
right.
today. Yeah.
I think what also, I didn't even know this was going to come up today, and this is so fascinating. But as a crossover trainer, I mean, you're
Mm,
not necessarily you're a trainer, but you crossed
yeah.
over. And when I was a teenager, I was uncomfortable with the prong. The trainer I was working under as a teenager wanted me to put a prong on my lab, but I did use choke chains, and I hated it as a teenager. And I talk about that
Mm.
in my book. Like, I hated using
Oh, I hated it.
those
Yeah.
things. But then now I'm a completely, I'm force free and positive. And one thing, as we'll take a pause, not from your books for a moment, and talk about how we can change and it's okay. Like, you did what you knew at the time. Like, that was
Hmm.
all the information you had was, from that one trainer. And then you got to learn. And so if there's anybody who's listening who's like, I'm using a prong collar or choke chain because I have a trainer that I had, and I'm feeling bad about changing, or I'm not sure. A lot of us were there. Any of us who've been training since, for a long time, there wasn't any other option, I mean, so I just think that it's a great thing for people to recognize that you even went from this to now positive stuff. And so I just think
Yeah.
it's a good thing for people to know, because I think sometimes people feel bad or they feel guilt that they did it the old way. But
Mm,
it's, the more we know, the better we do, when you don't
hmm.
know better, you do better. So
Yeah.
anyway, little side note that I didn't know we would get into. But so what was your first book that you published? Because you were being featured in everybody
Yeah.
else's work for a very long time. What was the first book you published?
So the first book was Doggy Language, and it's
Okay.
this one that you
Okay. That
were
I had.
showing. Yeah, and that was in 2019, I think.
Okay.
I was approached by a publisher, Summersdale, in the UK, because they had seen my Doggy Language chart with all the illustrations of my dog, my Boston Terrier, and they wanted to see if I wanted to make a gift book out of those drawings.
Okay.
At first, I was like, well, I don't really see the point of this being a book because it's a free download from my website. And then they suggested they had these really great ideas. They suggested, well, how about you draw different dogs, like,
Mhm.
and write a little bit more about each pose. And that's how the book came about. Like I thought, well, this is excellent. I mean, I could draw
Right.
different dogs and
Yeah. So that's why the Boston Terrier was such a prominent. Boogie was a Boston Terrier. So that's
yes,
why that's I, because I've always just seen them, the old ones, and they were always Boston
yeah,
Terriers. And I never really thought about why you chose a Boston Terrier. I mean, I just was like,
yeah, that
oh,
was my
okay.
dog.
That's awesome. So that, and then now, yeah. So in doggy language, you
Mm,
have all kinds. You could do different. You have different breeds and
yeah.
really different breeds. Like I just turned to one that has a Dotson. That they're going to look different than like a cattle dog or a poodle in some ways. That's excellent. So that published in 2019. You said
2020. It came out in
2020.
2020.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then I know you've done a couple other since then. What was your next one? Which was the next book that you did?
So Boogie passed away in 2020, actually,
Oh,
like the same month that the book came out.
oh,
And then I was kind of like grief stricken, like just going through a terrible time. And then my husband and I, we adopted two cats the next year. And then I got asked about doing a cat version. And I had been asked earlier, but I thought at the time I thought I didn't know anything about cats. Like I wasn't going to attempt it. But now that I had cats, I wanted to learn more about them. So I was doing a lot of reading and speaking to a lot of cat trainers and behaviorists. And so I pitched kitty language, and so which is like doggy language but for cats.
right, right.
Yeah.
So that is amazing. I mean, and there are one thing that I see because I have some body language things about cats and stuff, and people just don't always think about cats. They think of them as just they're just sitting in the windowsill, or they're hiding under the bed, or they don't aren't communicating. They don't
Mm,
think about that all the time, but they
mm.
really are always communicating. And
Yeah.
just like dogs, and you can have the more fearful communication or the
Yeah.
wild communication, confident communication. So they are always communicating.
It was interesting with cats too because the component of scent communication, that
Mhm.
was something that was very new to me. Like I've got this in the book as well. I remember one of our cats, like we adopted two cats, they're very bonded, they love each other, they're always snuggling. One of them went to the vet and came home, and the other cat attacked her because he didn't recognize her because she smelled different. And that was like a whole new experience for me.
Yes, I have had to,
Yeah,
I've had to advise as a vet tech when I was working as a
yeah,
vet tech, or even as a trainer. People will ask me, and I'm like, oh yeah. And I had two females that would do the same thing. If that one came home and they smelled different, and I learned that it was a long time ago, but I remember going, why? And then I learned. So then I started bringing them home and rubbing them in my like laundry, like dirty
yeah.
laundry, and separating them for
Yeah, separating
until
them. Yeah,
the scent could, regulate a little bit. Yeah, people don't recognize that either. So, do you
yeah.
talk about that in the kitty language book at all? Well,
Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes. There's a
that's
pa- there's a chapter on scent. Yeah.
that is amazing because again, things people just don't recognize, or they don't understand, or they don't know that cats have. And what I love about your books is because they're very detailed in the pictures, so you have no doubt about what that behavior that you're looking at is, but they're also not so complicated that people don't know what they're looking at. So they're really
Mm,
reader friendly or learner friendly. And I really like that. That's what I've always appreciated about them, even when it was just a poster or something, is that how it was very easy. When I use the fearful dog one, Sophia Yins, a lot for my
mm,
clients. I have that download and I'll show them. And when I show them things like turning away from the cookie or the cowering,
mm.
like there's like different ways of cowering, a little cowering and a lot cowering, or
Yeah.
or some of those other very specific things, pacing. Your drawings are so clear that when I show people, they're like, oh, I had no idea, oh, when my
Yeah.
dog doesn't want to eat. Oh, and so that's something I appreciate where not all illustrators can make those details come out, but not make it
Mm,
complicated either,
yeah.
because I've seen others that try to draw body language books and I think they get too detailed in the breed. So like the look of the breed, and so then they have all the
Yeah.
hair and stuff, and then you lose the focus on the
Yeah.
people.
I'm
So
I'm
yours
only
is simple
aware.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm aware of all the ones with photographs. Like I
Yeah.
have body language books, but they all are photos.
Yes.
Yeah, and that is so absolutely true. People get lost in what the breed is, and
Mhm. And
yeah,
and photos can be great, but there's so many other things going on in a photo, and you can just
yeah,
focus on the one body language that you're looking at. So
yeah.
I think that helps people learn a little bit better because you kind of take out the visual noise by
Mm-hmm.
just having the really what we're looking at. So I think that's
Yeah.
really great. And then you have a third book out now. When did this one come out?
So this came out in April this year.
Mhm.
It's called Dogs of the World. So this is completely different. It's not body language. It's actually dog breeds, so from
Yes.
around the world. So there are like over 600 dogs in this book. But I also have, it starts with where the dogs come from and it looks at how breeds developed. So
Mhm.
it's a general look at where breeds come from and what are mutts, what are village dogs, what are land races, and yeah.
Really, and very simple too. So again,
Mm.
not so complicated that if someone's
Yeah.
trying to learn about it, they're not having to learn all the socioeconomics of the humans that were with the dogs that were, like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
take away all that noise and make it a
Yeah.
very easy book to understand and learn.
Yeah.
How did you go about? Because I know a lot of breeds, but I don't think, I mean, did you have to do a lot of research for that book to find all
I
the breeds?
I did. So I did actually started this project in 2014. Like it
Oh,
started as a poster series. So back then I just discovered that dog breeds had countries of origin and there were breeds from England, there were breeds of America, breeds from, wherever. And I got obsessed with finding out which breeds came from where and I wanted to draw all of them. So
okay.
I created a whole series of posters with these dog drawings. And as I was learning more about breeds and what were breeds and what weren't breeds, because as I learned, there are some types of dogs that are not considered breeds technically.
Mm-hmm.
They might be indigenous to a certain part of the world, but they're not purebred.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of went down a very deep rabbit hole trying to figure out what all these labels meant. And I pitched Kitty Language to my publisher, 10 Speed Press. It was a 2-book deal, and they wanted
Okay.
a second book after Kitty Language. I actually had two things I pitched to them, and this is the one that they picked.
Uh-huh.
They said, "Yeah, Dogs of the World. Yes, it'd make a great book. Can you write something about each dog's personality?" And I'm thinking, well, no, that's not really the direction I want to go in. Breeds don't have personalities.
Mm-hmm.
So so there's a chapter on personality in there as well. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, so it's
Right. I
like an
mean, yeah, because there's traits, like each breed has,
yeah, this,
but
yeah,
within those traits, there's, I always tell people like personality, like it's just like humans. We're all so different with
yeah,
our
yeah. Like I
personalities.
mean, even if we come from the same family and have the
Mhm.
same, like we share genetics with our siblings, we're not the same people. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. So it was kind of, there was a lot of research because not only did I have to read up on like over 600 types of dogs from around the world, a lot of this information wasn't even available. So I had to like really dig in deep into social media and use Google Translate and in some
Oh,
places
yeah.
and talk to people who knew these dogs.
Yeah. Because there are some breeds that there's really not a lot. There may be only a couple hundred in the world or,
Yeah,
too. So those are harder to find,
yeah,
every once in a while I have a client who brings a breed that I'm like, I have never heard of anything like this before, and it's
yeah,
because there's not very many in the world or they're
yeah,
in a different country more prominently than they are in the
yeah,
United States. And so it's pretty fascinating, and then how breeds have developed into things that, we want, whether we
yep,
wanted the protection dog or we want the herding dog or we want the lap dog.
yeah,
We want the one that looks like a little baby, and we want,
yeah.
and
Like
what we
we've decided what they look like, and
it's,
we've decided what the standards are for each breed and what
yes,
they should, what their temperaments should be, and so on.
Exactly. So we think we can control all that, and then you get the, dog that doesn't fit those traits,
Yeah.
and that's when people really panic. Like, I thought I was getting, a golden retriever who was going to love everybody, and my golden retriever hates people. What's happening? And it's like
Yeah.
that's just because the personality. There might be genetics,
Yeah.
but I think that it's super fascinating. All those different breeds. It is amazing. And you found 600. I'm sure there's probably some little nugget breeds out
I
there
mean,
that,
there are new ones like being recognized right now. There's new breeds being created right now as we speak.
yeah. So see, it just keeps you busy. So you're going to have to do a second edition when all these
Oh
breeds go through.
gosh.
I know writing a book is a lot of work and people don't always recognize how much it is. And sometimes you need a little break from it after you do one. So,
Yeah.
but you get to draw. So you probably enjoy your books even more because it sounds like it's one of your
Yeah. Well, I have to write and I have to draw. It's a lot.
is. It
Yeah.
is. Now you've done cats and dogs. Now, have you ever done or considered doing things like horses or birds or other animals?
Yeah, so I know even less. I mean, I know nothing about horses or birds, but actually, that was one of the ideas I pitched to my publisher when they were looking for a second book.
Mhm.
It was actually my editor who came up with the idea. She said, "Have you thought about body language of other species?" And I said, "I would love to do something that
Mhm.
covers a range of species." But the book marketing department said, "Oh, that's not going to sell. Just stick with dogs and cats."
Uh,
That's how
yeah,
dogs of the
that's
world
how they
got
came.
ho-
Knowing the animals that I know or work with, I
Yeah,
think a horse one would be because people
yeah,
do not understand horse body language at all. That one could
yeah,
be pretty fascinating. And the horse world is trying to move more towards positive training. There's still a lot of traditional, more aversive training in it, but they're
yeah,
trying. And birds probably don't have as much of the market, but birds, people don't recognize that birds have body language too. They just think
yeah,
they just sit on a perch or, and they're just
yeah,
there. So, but really you could even do wildlife. You could do foxes and,
yeah,
bears. I
yeah,
mean, it could be
yeah.
really fascinating. So if there's any, publishers out there that like, any of these things, Lily Chin is ready to do other
I'm actually working on a snake body language chart.
interesting.
Yeah, it's with a snake behaviorist called Laurie Tarini. I don't know if you
Okay.
know of her.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
that's
that's on
awesome.
in the
On the list.
background. Yeah,
That's great. And people, again, another species that, people don't think about having body language, except
yeah,
we're all afraid of them. I mean, not all, but a lot of people, you're afraid of them, even though there's really no need. Like even poor, like rattlesnakes, people are so terrified of
yeah,
them. And a recent study showed that they really don't strike that often, and they're really not as dangerous as everybody thinks. And so there was a study, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but they put like a broomstick with a boot on the end and a pant leg, like a denim. So it was like
yeah,
jeans. And they kind
yeah,
of touched different snakes, like with the boot. Like it was this somebody was none of the snakes were hurt, but it was like if it was accidentally stepped on, and a very small percentage actually struck the boot. And so, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about how snakes don't want to strike. Like they want to eat
yeah. Well,
and they
it's
want to
kind
sleep and they want to just live their life. Like they don't want to strike
Yeah, and if
anybody.
you're going around stepping on them, I mean, it would be completely logical for them to strike. I
Exactly.
mean,
And
it's kind of like the smaller stress signals that dogs show before they escalate to a bite. There are these signals that snakes show as well that they're stressed or they're uncertain or they're uncomfortable. Snakes have those signals too, and striking is kind of like at the other end of the stress scale.
exactly.
Yeah,
And so, it'd be just interesting if, as people, if people just understood more about animals in general. So I think you're doing
yeah.
such a great service to people. Now, of all these things that you do, what's your favorite part of all of it?
I think I like the variety
Hmm.
that I have. I love the variety of things that I do. Like I'm illustrating for experts like
Hmm.
yourself.
Uh-huh.
I'm, illustrating books. I get to write books sometimes.
Hmm.
I also have an online shop, so I sell things that I've created. Like I have pins, I have prints and t-shirts and things. Yes, so I just like that variety in my
That's,
life.
yeah, I think,
Yeah.
you
And
know,
drawing people's dogs and cats.
Yeah. Do you still do that too
Yes,
sometimes?
I
Yeah.
still do
Oh,
that. Yeah.
oh, that's yeah. So
Yeah.
I might have to send you my I have two seniors. So they're
Yeah.
one's my Jack Russell's almost 14. He'll be 14 in October. My lab will be 16 in January. So I might have to send you some pictures and we might have to get a little Captain and Scout pictures done too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree. I love my job because it's such a variety. I teach classes,
Yeah.
I do podcasts, I do private trainings, and I think that helps keep it interesting. When you're always
Yeah.
doing something a little bit different. So you had your big book, you're doing the snakes. Do you have any other big projects coming up?
I'm working on a kid's book right now. It's dogs. It's
Uh-huh.
dog illustrations. It's for very young readers. So it's like A to Z and 1 to 10 counting book. So it's that
Okay.
age.
Awesome.
And it's
And
a
is it,
nice change because it didn't require any research. And,
you know how to count to 10?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it going to be I mean, is body
No,
language or
no,
just
no. It's
totally
just
non-animal? I mean, there might
it's
be animals in it
it's
because
it's like eye candy.
yeah. Oh, that is
Yeah.
oh, I don't have any little ones right now in my life, but I can't
Yeah.
wait till it comes out.
Yeah.
I might have to pick one up to give to one of the preschools or something because
Yeah.
I'm sure it will be wonderful. So, well, I am so happy to have you. I could probably talk to you even more about all these things because I love it when someone gets to live their passion and then we're having a similar path, like positive, really getting that
Yeah.
word out. You know, everything you've learned and everything you've experienced. I mean, really going from animation and then having someone find you and, building to where you are now. Is there anything you would want to tell the people who are listening about what you do or about your life or about philosophy or anything that you would like to?
Oh
I know it's kind of a hard
gosh.
question. That's the hardest question we've
I'm
asked so
trying
far.
I'm trying to figure out the answer to all these life questions myself. I'm assuming that people who are listening have dogs and or animals and they're
Mhm.
interested to hear about behavior and training. I guess there's help out there. There's support out
Mhm.
there.
Yes.
People you can reach out to if you need help with your dogs and cats.
Yeah, you don't have to do it alone. It's
Yeah.
interesting that you should say that today because I actually had a thought today. I was working
Yeah.
with a dog who's been reactive on walks, and we went on a walk this morning, and the dog did amazing. And a little bit we was feeling bad, like I just did a private training and I didn't have to do any, like specific coach. I mean, I was coaching. I was telling her like this is how you want to handle this. But then I started thinking, but 6 months ago, this dog would have reacted on this walk. Like it would have been
Mm,
we wouldn't have been able to do what we did today. But what I was also thinking is because at first I was feeling like, well, gosh, I didn't even help. But then I thought, sometimes we go to personal trainers or we go to nutritionists or
yeah.
we go to doctors, or we go, to life coaches or,
Hmm.
I mean, just because like I grew up as an athlete, but just because I grew up as an athlete doesn't mean I always know the best exercises to do. So I might go to the gym and hire a personal trainer to make sure I'm doing what I need to do for me because there's
Yeah.
so much information out there. Or maybe I go get a nutritionist if I want to eat healthier. And that is, don't feel bad if you need to get help and reach out because, if you're a general person that's had dogs, you might know how to train your dog, sit down, come stay, and maybe you've done it with 10 dogs in your life, but this one dog might be different. And you just might need a little guidance on how to, work through
Yeah.
that training. So it's funny that you should say that, that there is help out there. Cause I probably 2 hours ago was thinking, gosh, and then I'm like, well, no, but she wouldn't have been able to get here without my guidance, So I
Yeah.
think that that's true. We need, sometimes we just need help sometimes, to
Yeah.
get over the bump.
Hmm.
So, well, Lili, it was so great to have you. I'm so happy that we were able to make this happen. And all of you guys who are listening, we will have links to Lili's books, but they're on Amazon and probably like Barnes and Noble and all those online spots, and probably some of your local bookstores might carry
Hmm.
them as well. So check those out. And then also check out her website because you can see all the other products she has, as well as if you want to get your animal drawn. It sounds like she's still doing that. That's awesome
Yep.
because that's a great thing. So lots of resources through Lili, and you'll see her now. You probably will see her everywhere you go because every time like I'm on Facebook, I'm like, oh, someone else, another trainer or another, behaviorist hired
Yeah.
Lili because I recognize your art now,
Yeah.
and which is so beautiful. So, well, thank you so much for being here. And thank you all for listening, and check Lili out.
Thank you, Shannon.
And thank you.